when people start to become emotionally vulnerable, I think people start to get scared. And to take full accountability of that, like, you know, just for the sake of the message of this video, I think that I'm also a victim of that. Now, I do want to say that I'm not scared to love, because I feel like that's what not only but I feel like as a shared purpose, like talking about humans and, you know, us, I feel like we all have a shared purpose of loving each other and treating each other, you know, the way that we treat ourselves. And you know, that mindset comes from, you know, my faith, reading the Bible and stuff like that. But to really focus on the message, I feel like when people get emotionally vulnerable, or when they are emotionally vulnerable, that's when they're the most scared. That's when they're most frightened, because they know they're vulnerable. And I feel like sometimes it could be a beautiful thing, and sometimes it could be detrimental to others, because the only time that is really detrimental is when you don't do, you know, enough perception, and when you really don't get to know people, so that when you vent to them, it's not like a negative vent. You feel me? Because you also have to pick and choose who you vent to, because you can gauge who you can be emotionally vulnerable with. Like, you know who to have certain conversations with, you know who not to have certain conversations with. And I feel like, to personally connect to it, when I get emotionally vulnerable, I don't want to say I become avoidant, because that's not, you know, on my heart. But I feel as though I do get scared as well, because I know how deeply I can feel, and I know how deeply emotionally attached I can not only get to people but to situations. And it's not a coping mechanism. It's none of that. I think it's just, you know, a natural part of my character. But I feel as though when I personally get emotionally attached, I feel it's a beautiful thing. But I also get just a little bit frightened. But I try to keep it in the back of my mind to not live in the spirit of fear, but of power and love, because I know that love can conquer all, which may sound corny, but it's true. You feel me? If you loving people doesn't cause any negativity or detriment to your life. You just have to really pick and choose who you love. You feel me? And who you give yourself access to, and vice versa. So I really feel like, to touch on the point of this video, try to work on being emotionally vulnerable, and don't lean too much on fear. Lean more on love, because love is always the right choice to make. Love is always the right choice to make, instead of leaning on fear, which will, you know, it'll poison your actions. Like, it'll make you start thinking ways. It'll make you, you know, have distrust. It'll just, you know, you'll start to make situations in your head that aren't even possible, or not that aren't even possible, but you haven't seen, or, you feel me? Like, you just making stuff up in your head. So just don't get too caught up in your emotions, but also be emotionally vulnerable, if you feel what I'm saying.